This is an instructional video entitled The Magic Chart. My friends, this chart explains virtually everything having to do with what theory you learned, whether you learn a lot of briefs or few briefs, and how fast you can move your fingers, and how those two items together work together to make your top speed. There's only two things that contribute to your speed as a shorthand writer. The first is how many strokes or how few strokes you write. And the second is how fast your fingers move. This chart is going to open your eyes so that you will see the importance of writing short to shorthand speed. Let's look at strokes per second, which is on the left here. Basically, this means how many strokes you can do in 1 second on new material for an extended amount of time, such as 30 seconds or a minute. I don't mean how many you can do for 1 second, one time, on something that you can write easily. I mean an extended amount of time, how many strokes per second you can average on a new take that you can pass with 95% or better. I have color-coded these strokes per second to indicate how easy they are to write for a court reporter or student. Basically, 3 strokes per second I have in green, a very rich green color. I like to say that is the speed of a fast student. Next, we have 3.5. And the 3.5 is a little lighter green, and that is an experienced reporter's pace that they can keep up with no problem. 4.0, look, it starts to get, I'll call it hot. The temperature starts to go up. 4.0 strokes per second is pretty fast. You can really feel you're moving. 4.5 strokes per second is really getting very hot. That's basically an orange color here. I don't know if that's coming out in the video, but this is orange. Let me zoom in and see if it's easier to see the orange. All right. And then 5.0 is really hot. It's a very fast speed. Now, if you've ever heard the stopwatch ticking on 60 minutes, if you pay close attention to that, you'll see that each of those ticks is 1/5 of a second. You can even see it on the stopwatch. And so you hear that little tick, 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 tick. Those are each 1/5 of a second. So if you could write a stroke for each of those ticks, you would be writing 5 strokes per second. 5 strokes per second is what I had to, if not master, get pretty good at in order to make my world record. It was extremely difficult, in my opinion, for me to get that fast. It took a lot of hard work. So I think the vast majority of court reporters can write in the 4.0 range as their top speed, and the faster ones, or the speed contest level ones, are 4.5. So again, to review, fast student 3.0, experienced court reporter 3.5, fast court reporter 4.0, speed contest court reporter 4.5, and my world record attempt 5.0. Now let me throw in here, I do think that there are a few rare court reporters who regularly go above 5 strokes per second, and they are, I would say, extremely talented. And when I say regularly, again, I mean for an extended period of time. I do not mean for 1 or 2 seconds. I mean for keeping it up for 30 seconds or a minute or longer. Court reporters that can do that are possibly 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 10,000 or 1 in 20,000. And the reason they can do that is usually because A, they're talented, and B, they write everything out, and so they have to write that fast all the time. My guess is that they almost never are able to write good real time, because I can't imagine writing good real time at 5.0. It's just going to be a mess, at least in my case. So I like to write real time when my fingers are going 3.0 or 3.5. As they get closer to 4.0, my real time starts to go downhill significantly, and by 4.5 it's not clean real time anymore. And by 5.0 it's pretty darn messy. This is how it works for me. So I want to always be writing real time at these finger speeds, and I want to be taking down high speed testimony where it's not real time at these speeds right here. Now let's look at this whole chart. The next part of the chart is strokes per word, and that's the 1.4, 1.2, 1.0, and 0.8. What 1.4 means here, that means that if there's 100 words, you wrote 140 strokes, okay? And that is about the worst or most extreme example that I've seen of a person writing a literary 100 words and 140 strokes. Now a moderate level, 1.2 strokes per word, that means 100 words, 120 strokes. And then we go to the 1.0, which of course means 100 words, 100 strokes. And last but not least, 100 words, 80 strokes. Now, people who write everything out are going to almost always be in the first two columns, 1.4 and 1.2. Okay? And generally, they're going to do 1.4 around there for their literaries and around here for their Q&As. This would be someone that writes everything out. I've pretty much figured that I could make a box here, and that box is going to be the range of that person's speeds. This would be a student who writes everything out is going to have these as their top speeds. What's that mean, Mark? Well, the 129 here means that if they are writing a piece where they have to write 1.4 strokes per word, and they can only write 3 strokes per second, that's their top speed, 129. Next, we go down and we see that if they are doing 1.4 strokes per word and a faster pace, like a regular experienced court reporter speed, they're still only going 150 words a minute. And do you know that there are thousands of students in the country right now who learned Phoenix and StenEd and Roberts Walsh Gonzalez, which are all three very stroke-intensive theories, who are wondering why they are stuck between 150 and 175, and their fingers are moving pretty darn fast. In fact, their fingers are moving as fast as what I've called an experienced court reporter. And so they're topping out at 150 and 175, depending on the material. Now in this video, when I make a square of 4 like this, a rectangle, let's assume that this is the range that a reporter will write within, the left column being literary material generally, and the right column being Q&A material generally, and the bottom part being when they're writing at a faster speed, and the top part meaning they're writing at a slower speed. Their fingers aren't moving as quickly. So this range right here, folks, is where tons of students are caught and trapped because they write everything out. Now let's back off just a little bit and let's look at some court reporters who did graduate from school, but they still write everything out. Their box is going to be the next one down, probably. But actually, it's not likely that they're going to graduate. They're probably stuck in school, actually, still. Because look, on the Q&A in the right side, they're varying between 175 and 200, depending on their finger speed. Basically, the Q&A, they're writing 120 strokes for every 100 words. And over here, if it's a dense literary, now I mean really pretty dense, they're going to top out between 150 and 171. Now let's look at some of those students who actually have really fast fingers. Let's go down again. Now these students, if they are students, they have some amazingly fast fingers, and they probably finally were able to graduate because look, they can hit 225 here, and they can get at least average 180 over here on the literary. But my friends, I can tell you they're just about finished with their finger speed improvement. I'd be very surprised if they could go down to 5.0. That's just too fast. So they are going to be stuck here, and they're wondering why court reporting is so hard. And it's because they learned a stroke-intensive theory with hardly any briefs.